Don't miss these life-changing truths from Pastor Adam Burton's latest sermon at Central Baptist Church.
Did you know that linguists note that a child's first language is absorbed through repetition and relationship long before the child has words for what's happening? We've all experienced this, and it's amazing to watch it happen in our own children. Because kids hear language spoken by people they love in ordinary moments day after day. And it becomes part of how they think. It feels less like formal learning and more like breathing to them. And sincere faith passes the same way. Mother's Day is one of those Sundays where the room is full and the emotional temperature is all over the place. Some of you came in this morning feeling celebrated because your kids made you breakfast, or at least they tried to. Maybe you have plans later on today. You feel seen, and that's genuinely a good thing. But others of you came in today carrying something heavier. You love your kids, but you find yourself wondering if you're doing enough as you replay the conversations and you second guess your everyday decisions. You look at your family hoping that what you're giving them actually matters, even though some days you just don't know. And for some of you, Mother's Day is simply a complicated phrase. You might have deeply wanted children and that door hasn't opened. Or perhaps you lost your mother. Or you're navigating a relationship that is broken in ways that lack easy answers. It can be incredibly hard to sit here when everyone around you seems to be celebrating something that you're still waiting for or grieving altogether. And I want you to know that this room has space for all of that this morning. The passage that we're reading today speaks to everyone in the room. This is a text about the lasting impact of faithful presence in another person's life. And mothers certainly embody that in a specific way, and we are absolutely going to honor that today. Yet every single person here, every father, every friend, mentor, anyone that has loved someone else over a long period of time has something deeply at stake in this text. So please open your Bibles with me to 2 Timothy chapter 1. We're going to start in verse 3 and work through verse 7. The main thing that I want you to take out of here today is this: trust the faith you're living, because God is building something you can't see yet. Our first point is to trust what you can't see. Trust what you can't see. Let's look at verses 3 through 5 together. I thank God whom I serve, as did my ancestors, with a clear conscience, as I remember you constantly in my prayers, night and day. As I remember your tears, I long to see you, that I may be filled with joy. I am reminded of your sincere faith, a faith that dwelt first in your grandmother Lois and your mother Eunice, and now, I am sure, dwells in you as well. Paul is writing from a Roman prison cell. He's nearing the end of his life, and he's been abandoned by people he counted on. And he's writing to a younger pastor that he loves deeply, who's starting to shrink back from the weight of his calling. Before he addresses any of that, he does something that's worth slowing down on. Look at verse 3. He connects his own faith to his ancestors. He's talking about that long line of people who trusted God before the promises were fully visible. People who lived and died holding on to something that they couldn't completely see. Paul is saying that he stands in this line. His faith was handed to him through the people who were faithful long before he was. And then he traces Timothy's faith backward through his grandmother Lois and his mother Eunice. Two women mentioned almost nowhere else in Scripture, no letters they wrote, no record of ministry they performed. They were simply two women who carried a genuine faith and lived it out in front of the people closest to them. And Paul's point is that he and Timothy are both standing in the same kind of line. Both of them are the fruit of people who planted something without knowing what it would eventually grow into. The phrase, "I am sure," in verse 5 carries the force of total conviction. Paul is completely certain about Timothy's faith. What makes that remarkable is that Paul wasn't present in their household watching it happen over the years. He encountered a young man whose faith was so obviously genuine that Paul could trace it back to its source. He saw the fruit and knew exactly where it came from. Now look at that word "dwelt." It describes something taking up permanent residence and enduring inward characteristic. Faith lived deeply in Lois and in Eunice. It shaped how they moved through their days, how they prayed, how they held on to God through the years when holding on was hard. Because it was genuinely resident in them, it traveled through relationship and proximity into the person closest to them. And that faith kept moving. First Lois, then Eunice, then Timothy. And this is how God works. He moves faith through relationships in the ordinary, sustained presence of people who carry something real and live it out in front of someone else long enough for it to take root. 1987, a missionary named Pam Tebow was in the hospital in the Philippines after contracting amoebic dysentery. She had fallen into a coma. When she had woken up, doctors discovered that she was pregnant. Because the medications used to save her life had been so strong, the risk of severe fetal abnormality was very real. The medical advice was clear. For her safety, she should terminate the pregnancy. But she refused. Now, Pam Tebow had no idea what her son Tim would do with his life or the platform that he would eventually carry. But in that moment, she made a faithful decision with incomplete information and impossible odds. She trusted God with an outcome that she couldn't calculate or control. And the way that decision shapes a life isn't usually through a single dramatic moment. No, it's through the accumulation of ordinary ones. Did you know that linguists note that a child's first language is absorbed through repetition and relationship long before the child has words for what's happening? We've all experienced this, and it's amazing to watch it happen in our own children. Because kids hear language spoken by people they love in ordinary moments day after day. And it becomes part of how they think. It feels less like formal learning and more like breathing to them. And sincere faith passes the same way. It often settles into a person before they fully realize what's happening. It shapes how they see the world, how they respond to suffering, how they pray, how they hold on to God when things get hard. And then one day, years later, someone looks at them and traces that faith right back to you. Think about what faithful presence actually looks like in the life of a mother. It's rarely a dramatic moment. Most of the time, it's the accumulation of small, unremarkable things. It's answering the hard question that your child asks in the car as honestly as you can, even when you don't have a clean answer. It's letting your kids watch you hold on to God through something hard instead of pretending that everything is fine. It's mentioning at dinner what you're praying about, the way that you'd mention anything else that's on your mind. It's a faith lived out in the open rather than kept behind closed doors. None of those moments do they feel significant while they're happening. You're just getting through your day. But something has been deposited in ways you can't measure and you won't always see. And this isn't only the mother's work. Every father who talks openly about what he believes, every grandparent who's praying for their grandchildren, every Sunday school teacher showing up week after week for those kids who seem uninterested, every mentor who mentions God naturally in their conversation. All of it follows the same pattern. It's faith traveling through relationship. Ordinary presence carrying something real into the lives of someone who is watching. Now, most of us, we measure faithfulness by the visible results. We look for confirmation that what we're giving is landing, that the investment is producing something that we can point to. We want results. And when that confirmation doesn't come and the years pass without a visible yield, we start to wonder, have I failed? But Lois and Eunice are the answer to that fear. Two women whose names appear a combined 3 times in the entire Bible, whose contribution to the history of the church is a single sentence in a letter written by a man who never watched them do the work. Paul saw what they produced, and he traced it back to them. God knew what they were building the whole time. So you might be planting something right now that you cannot see. So tend to what you're planting. Pray for the people closest to you by name, even when you have no idea what God is doing in them. Talk about your faith in the ordinary moments rather than saving it for the right conversation that never quite arrives. Let the people watching you see what you do when life is hard and when God feels distant, because that might be the most formative thing they ever observe. And then release the timeline, because you don't get to know when the fruit appears or what it looks like when it does. Lois and Eunice didn't get a letter from Paul. They most certainly never knew the extent of the impact that Timothy would have, and that people 2,000 years later would still be tracing his faith back to their kitchen table. You just plant. That's the whole invitation of this text, is to live what you believe in front of the people closest to you and trust God where it goes. Trust what you can't see. Secondly, fan the flame. Fan the flame. Let's look now at verses 6 and 7. For this reason I remind you to fan into flame the gift of God, which is in you through the laying on of my hands. For God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power and love and self-control. Notice the first 3 words of verse 6. For this reason. Paul has just spent 5 verses tracing Timothy's faith backward through Lois, through Eunice, through his own ancestors, through that long line of ordinary people who carried something real and passed it forward. He did all of that on purpose. The backward look is the foundation for everything he's about to say. Because look what you were given, Timothy. Now, do something with it. The word picture is specific. A fire that is burned down to its embers. Now, the heat is still real. The capacity to burn is completely intact. It just needs someone who's willing to tend it. Now, Paul isn't telling Timothy to find something new or to manufacture something that he doesn't have. The gift is already there. The faith is already resident. He just needs to stoke what God already placed inside of him. And Timothy needs this reminder badly. He's facing serious opposition. He's carrying enormous responsibility, and he's watching people that he counted on to walk away from the faith. The fear pressing in on him is the kind that makes a person want to pull back and to protect themselves. And Paul sees it clearly and names it with the care of someone who has walked through the fire himself. You have not been given a spirit of fear, he says. What God gave you pushes directly back against everything trying to shrink you down. And then he gets specific. 3 things God provides that stand out against fear. First, power. This is the forcefulness of character to keep showing up when showing up is hard. The capacity to carry what God gave you without folding under the weight of it. It's not the power to have all of the answers or to never feel pressure. It's the strength to stay in the room. Second, love. The ability to keep moving forward toward the people in front of you, especially when those relationships are costly. A love that holds on and that extends forgiveness and refuses to give up on people when, let's face it, giving up would be much easier. This is what keeps faithful presence from becoming mere duty. And third is self-control. It's a steady, wise head that knows how to hold power and love together without letting either one run loose. It keeps strength from becoming harshness. It keeps love from becoming sentiment with no spine. It's the quality that makes the other two sustainable over the years. And God has already given you this spirit. All 3 of those things are resident in you right now if Christ is resident in you. Eric Liddell knew what it felt like to carry something under pressure. Most people who know his name know the Chariots of Fire version of the story. The Scottish sprinter who refused to run on Sunday at the 1924 Summer Paris Olympics. And then he won gold in the 400 meters anyway. What fewer people know is what came after. Liddell spent the rest of his life as a missionary in China. And in 1943, he was interned in a Japanese civilian prison camp with nearly 2,000 other people. He had every reason to conserve what little he had left. Instead, he taught Bible classes. He organized games for children who hadn't seen their parents in years. He taught science to kids using scraps of paper because there was nothing else to write on. Fellow prisoners, they called him Uncle Eric. One of them later wrote that in all the time they spent in that camp, he never once heard Liddell say a bad word about anybody. He was dying of a brain tumor the whole time, though nobody knew it. He died in February 1945, 5 months before the camp was liberated. And his last words were, "It's complete surrender." He was 43 years old. He never stopped tending what God placed in him, right up into the moment that he had nothing left to give. That's what fanning the flame looks like when the circumstances give you every reason to let it go out. And look, some of you are carrying something heavy today. Maybe you're lying awake, replaying your decisions, wondering if your choices are going to shape your kids in ways that you can't undo. You're watching someone you love struggle. You're wishing that you had the words to fix it. You're praying and you're waiting and feeling the distance between what you want to give your family and the energy you actually have at the end of the day. And Paul doesn't give Timothy a strategy. He hands him a reminder. You already have what you need. The same spirit that kept Eric Liddell teaching science on scraps of paper in a prison camp is the spirit that God gave you The same deposit that traveled from Lois to Eunice to Timothy, that has moved through generation after generation of ordinary people who simply refuse to stop, is available to you right now. So tend it. Pray with the kind of consistency that keeps you connected to the source of what you're carrying. Stay in the Word, not as a discipline to check off, but because you need it to keep burning. And let your faith stay visible to the people around you, rather than retreating into something private. The embers, they don't tend themselves, but they do respond when you show up. So fan into the flame what God put in you. Don't shrink back. I'll invite Judy to come at this time. 2,000 years after Paul wrote this letter from a prison cell, we are still feeling what Lois and Eunice planted. That's not a small thing. It means that what you do with your faith in the ordinary moments of your life, the ones that feel unremarkable while you're living them, has a reach that you will never fully calculate on this side of heaven. The fruit is real, even if you can't see it. The gift is sufficient, even when fear tells you otherwise. That's the whole invitation of this text, to plant something real, to tend to what God placed in you, to trust Him with the harvest. So if you're here today and you don't know Christ, the faith that traveled from Lois to Eunice to Timothy began with a genuine embrace of Jesus as the fulfillment of everything God promised. He lived the life we couldn't live and died the death we deserved, and the empty tomb is God's declaration that it was enough. And that same door is open to you right now. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to come. And if you already know Christ, and that faith is resident in you, the text has 2 words for you today. Tend it. Don't let fear convince you that what you're carrying isn't enough, or that the years of ordinary faithfulness aren't adding up to anything. Because they are. God sees what He's building, even when you can't. In a moment, I'm going to stand and sing. And I'll be standing right down here at the front. Whether you're coming to Christ for the first time, or you're carrying the weight of feeling like you've got nothing left to give, come and bring it to God, who has known what He's been building all along. He always does, and He still does today. I'm Pastor Adam Burton from Central Baptist Church. I want to personally thank you for watching our sermon today. It means so much to us that you've taken time to connect with God's Word through our ministry. If this message encouraged you, I invite you to explore more about our church at cbcmaysville.com. You'll find resources, upcoming events, and ways to get involved. And don't forget to follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram for more content like this. We'd love to stay connected with you and to continue to grow together in faith. Thanks again for watching. God bless you, and I hope to see you soon, either online or in person.